And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up tonight, we got a pair of special guests at 6:20. It is our coach guest for this week, the head girls basketball coach at Witt-Birn High School, Nick Mechelke. He is leading the 22-2 Chargers, who are a number 1 seed in Division III. That's at 6:20. And then our student athlete guest at 7 p.m. will be Merrill High School senior Maya Ott. I got to get that right. Maya Ott, who scored 53 points last night in the Blue Jays playoff win over Ashland. And not only that, by getting her 52nd point, that set the Merrill career scoring record. So quite a night for Maya Ott last night, helping the Blue Jays keep their season alive, and they will play on Friday up in Minocqua against Lakeland. So a couple of guests coming up. Witt-Birn girls basketball coach Nick Mechelke, and also Maya Ott from the Merrill Blue Jays. Jeff Gress, you gave me a thumbs up. What'd you give me a thumbs up for?
Because it all sounds good.
You're
doing a good job. Yeah. It's a simple thumb up. Not trying to goofy up or anything.
I tell you, it's like I see some movement and it gets me all goofy. Obviously, a lot going on. We got the girls basketball playoffs underway last night. We have the sectionals going on in high school hockey, both the boys and the girls, and the final days of the regular season in high school boys basketball. But really heading down the stretch here, just a few more weeks to go on this program.
Yeah, and you got to love this time of year. A lot of cool things. Conferences are coming to an end, so there might be a game here and there that matters that we'll discuss about some of these conferences yet for the showdown to be the conference leader. And you turn around and get in the playoffs. And I love it because you see teams step up that may have not on paper supposed to get the win just because they dug down deep and wanted it more. And then you have teams that, should go in and command and control their destiny and go own things. So just a great time of year when things are on the line. And I think that's a big deal. It makes it more competitive.
Well, let's start off, as we do every week, talking about what's happening in high school boys basketball again. We're going to talk about the playoff brackets and the matchups later in the program. We're going to just start off by talking about what's been going on in the conferences, Wisconsin Valley Conference. I did not bring the standings tonight. I completely flaked here today. But I'm going to talk about the action, and then we can talk about where they stand. In the Valley last Thursday, Wausau West in a non-conference game beat Lakeland 57-42. Brett Butala had 12 points. Griffin Lang 10 for the Warriors. Then Friday night, got back into conference play. In fact, I was in Marshfield last Friday. Marshfield had clinched the Wisconsin Valley Conference. They were still undefeated in league, but the Warriors gave them everything they could handle. Ultimately went to overtime in Marshfield, defeated West 48-40 in OT. Bennett Matson 14 points. Brooks Hinson had a number of three-point field goals that basically kept Marshfield in the game. He had 24 points to lead the way for Marshfield. Also last Friday in the conference, DC Everest continues their late season surge. They defeated Merrill 55-37. Big night for Xavier Edwards. He had 28 points. He was 12 of 15 from the field in that game. Cohen Preby had 17. Carter Body had 15 for Merrill. Stevens Point, they roughed up Wisconsin Rapids 71-43. Amon Konopaki 22, Grant Chaudinot 20, and a non-conference game last Friday. Wausau East fell to Waupun 86-72. Charlie Cayley had a big night for East, 21 points, 15 rebounds. Jack Barthos had 18 as well for East. And then on Monday night, some non-conference play. And Wisconsin Rapids bounced back from that tough one against Stevens Point, beating Toma 83-75. Wausau West beat Wittenberg Burnhamwood 66-44. Brett Butala had 24 points, including 4 of 4 from three-point range. Griffin Lang 15 for West. Wausau East in a non-conference game defeated Colfax 72-31. Jaden Garrett had 15 for Wausau East. And Chippewa Falls beat Merrill 98-60. Carter Body 18, EJ Wykes 15 for the Merrill Blue Jays. But going into the week, Marshfield had taken care of the business. They had clinched the conference, and you wrote it down. You can talk about it in terms of what you want to talk about in terms of the conference standings. But Marshfield, I think, was a little bit of a letdown after clinching the conference. But Wausau West really, I thought, played a really good defensive game. The offense was struggling still a little bit. Talking to Coach Nate Lemons beforehand, he's a little worried about the offense. They were much better against Witt-Birn, hitting 8 of 15 from three-point range. If West hit shots, they're dangerous because that defense is there. Their defense was stellar against Marshfield last Friday. But generally, teams right now just getting ready for the playoffs with the conference championship already lined up.
Yeah, and I guess, looking at starting up with Marshfield at 11-0 at the top of the conference, it was clinched. Sometimes, I've just seen them win in all different ways, which I kind of like about that team. They sometimes win ugly, they sometimes win consistent. They know what their foundation is that they want to hold to in terms of how they want to play, and I think that's a making of a good team because you're going to see all these different types of situations and circumstances, and that D1 bracket isn't easy, even though they're sitting at the top of it. They got target on their back being the number one seed. So I guess I can expect that a little bit when, the player, it's a long basketball season. Sure. You're exhausted, so you play good enough to win. So Marshfield, holding their own, keeping that, something to fight for with an unblemished record at 11-0. For East, they jumped out. Played Waupun, who's a tough team, had a lot of scores. I saw that game. Waupun shot very, very well that night, and East came at him a couple times and just wasn't able to get over the hump. Tough game sometimes when you have those non-conference ones that are at the end of the season, whether or not it's a big deal to grab it or not, because you've got your sights set on playing Spash for second place in the conference, and you got your playoffs coming up, which is a big deal where they earned a great seed also. But bounced back again and got the win against Colfax on the Monday night and in that non-conference schedule at 72-31, sitting in second place. Along tied there is Spash at 8-3. And, they had a week where they only had the one game, but they went out and owned Rapids 71-43 and playing well. Again, as we talk about some of these teams, it's interesting seeing that, you got to lie dormant for that first round. Do you want the momentum going? Do you want the night off? Do you need time to recuperate? I guess that's another thing we can always discuss at the end. West, whenever we talk to Coach Lemons and from what you see in doing the broadcast of their games, the defensive stinginess is always there. They're not going to let you have things easy. They're going to be hovering around you, making you really work. But it comes down to whether or not they're going to knock that ball down and finish that shot off. And obviously came a little short against Marshfield. Got a nice non-conference win Monday against Witt-Birn where they bounced back 66-44 in a non-conference game.
They got real quickly. They got a very long break. That was their last regular season game. They got the conference bye this week. Yeah. They don't have a non-conference game. That's a week and a half between now and a trip to Kaukauna, which we'll talk about later when we talk about the brackets.
But a long break.
That is a long break.
Everest again. I like that element. I don't know if you want to call him sneaky in a good way. You just don't know. You got to be careful what you're going to get into with them because they've got the makings to take down a top team as well as they got to get by in an ugly one and they can control pace too. So nice the fact that they're still finishing out strong in the conference. Got their one more game yet and they'll have an early first round game and continuing to control that destiny a little bit. And, for some of the other teams just looking to finish out with some games here and get into playoffs, I think, with where they're finishing off in the conference because it's just kind of trying to get all the W's you can at the end of the season with Rapids and Merrill.
Great Northern Conference. We said that the Wisconsin Valley Conference has a conference that is decided. It is not decided in the Great Northern Conference. You got 3 teams tied for the lead going into the final night of the regular season in the league coming up tomorrow night. And it's that way because Rhinelander went to Mosinee and won last Friday. That was a big surprise. Again, not to say that Rhinelander is not capable, but they went up there and beat Mosinee 64-63 despite another monster night from Landon Tomer, 27 points, 16 boards. Keegan Jersley, 15 points as well for Mosinee. Medford beat Tomahawk Friday 101-60. Tanner Robbie had 28 points. So that means all 3 of those teams are tied. There will not be a 3-way tie for the conference championship because Rhinelander plays Medford. Right. But we've been talking, and I've been talking a lot about whether or not Rhinelander in their non-conference schedule may have overscheduled. But I guess the proof is in the pudding. They were ready for a big game in Mosinee Friday and earned a huge win.
And what I like about it is you have on paper certain teams looking better statistical wise or what they're able to accomplish or record wise, but it just shows how your conference is always a war. And that's why when the coaches and players come on and they talk about their conference, it's great to get the insight. It's great to see the way they stand up for their conferences, because everybody argues their conference that they're in is the best. And it goes to show you, just because coaches know each other. Players have started playing from the youth leagues all the way to middle school, all the way up into high school, where they're playing each other consistently. For us as the listeners and the observers from a back seat not being part of these programs, what a great race at the top. I mean, Rhinelander went into the Lions' den, so to speak, and scraped out a tough one. And that non-conference schedule looks like it's paying off here late in the season. They're 14-9 overall, which, said they've been up and down in terms of when they've gotten wins in a row or taken a couple losses, and got a great place to control their destiny. Medford knows, even though they're a game under 500 as of last night after a loss to Rice Lake, they're no slouches. We know they can score. We know they're well coached. We know they play defense. They have tradition of being one of the top teams in the Great Northern Conference for the boys, and it puts them at a great spot. They can go over and steal one. So, like you said, I think Mosinee going to beat Lakeland to stay in that top spot. But one of those other teams has really worked hard to get a share of it.
And Mosinee bounced back nicely on Monday when they beat Brilliant 60-59. Tomer 25 points, 12 boards. Treve Stoffel 15. And that night, Jersley was in single digits. You don't see that very often, and yet they were still able to find a way to win. And I thought that's a good bounce back, because you don't want to have multiple losses at this point at the end of the regular season.
And especially when your athletic director and head coach have gone out and challenged your schedule, and to pop back. Brilliant's a good non-conference opponent, and I'm sure it was probably nerve-wracking with a couple points in there and some of your lead guys maybe struggling in that game a little bit, but it's a testament to how hard you've worked throughout the season to go own that last tough non-conference game and get a nice bounce-back win after a tough loss.
Merriwood Conference South, we expected a massive game tomorrow night. It's still a big game, but it's not the massive game because of what happened. Merriwood Conference South, the Marathon Red Raiders have now won their third straight conference championship, an amazing 30th conference championship for Marathon. 30 conference championships in that very successful boys basketball program. Friday, there were 3 games. Marathon rolled Assumption 76-27. Auburndale stayed a game back, beating Edgar 53-45. And Stratford beat Newman 56-39. So that set things up for Monday. Marathon went into Edgar. Again, impressive. That's not an easy trip in that rivalry game. And Marathon went into the hostile environs and beat Edgar 71-44. Grant Warren, again, is such a game changer. 29 points, 14 boards. Drew Wolfel at 14. So at the very least, Marathon had clinched at least a tie for the conference championship. But then Stratford went into Auburndale. We remember the first time they met? Auburndale went to Stratford and not only won, but won by a massive amount. Yep. But Stratford went back and beat Auburndale 51-44. Henry Zaleski 19, Brady Schmidt 14 for the Tigers. And Assumption beat Newman in overtime as well Monday, 66-60, a game that I had here on Bow Falls Radio. JT Schlafer, 24 points, including a game-tying 3-point field goal with 1 second to go in regulation. Lucas Piffner, 23 for the Cards. But to begin with, let's talk first of all about that Stratford-Auburndale game, because I know you have the utmost respect for Kurt Schmidt. And I think, again, I had some doubts in the last few weeks because they had a game against Chequamegon that was very difficult at home. It felt like they were kind of up and down. But they came out and they went to Auburndale and knocked them out of a chance to get a share of the conference championship after getting rolled the first time. I thought that was really an impressive win for Stratford on Monday.
Well, you can just tell in the conversations that since, a lot of these guys are old friends and I've known them for a long time, and you talk to Coach Schmidt and just the way he describes things and the vocabulary that he uses, he's always trying to put his players in the best spot. And I think as a coach, that's all our goals, is to maximize what we have in the gym, whether it's higher or lower abilities, whether it's whatever style we got to play, we push the ball, we got to set up in a half court, whatever defense, man, or zone we want to run. And he's always doing a great job of that, is getting these guys to work to the best of what they have to bring to the table from the beginning of the season till the end. And it shows up in games, and the Merriwood Conference isn't an easy place to win consistently. So for Stratford, really made things interesting, especially like you said, when we saw some tight scores. Figured they might not be finishing out as strong. And Coach Schmidt, when he was on the show, shared some of the things that they really got to work on this, or they're not tested in this. And we thought, well, maybe they just never got over that hump a little bit. But, now it shows like it's the other way. Like they're ready to go. Like they could be a spoiler. They're ranked 4 in their playoff bracket. They're a team you probably don't want to see. There's just a team that you can't look by, and nothing's going to come easy out of their scrappy defense and kind of a philosophy of enough to get by offense. I mean, if you can hold Auburndale, who's a potent scoring team, to 44, that's a good job. So for Stratford, a nice win against Auburndale. For Marathon, what can you say? When you can say 30 conference championships and they go out and just the margin of victory that they have against some of their conference foes and in the last couple conference games, and Edgar's not an easy one, and I think the Auburndale one, even though the conference isn't riding on the line anymore, I think it's still a big deal to set some tones, and I think that's an interesting chess match too, because you could bounce back and be playing each other in a couple weeks, and what are you going to show? What are you not going to show? What are you going to really use to test out? That's the beauty of the game, when you sometimes have to see a team that you saw enough in conference and you roll around and they're you got to go through them to get to state, things like that. So obviously outstanding, and it'll still be a fun game, but to see how they break that down against each other with conference foes.
Well, I think Stratford wishes that game was played before the seedings came out, because I think that win would have put them into the number 3 line over Edgar, instead of having to play at Marathon the first Saturday of the playoffs. They would have had a chance to go to a place they had just won. So again, that's one of the things where sometimes people say, well, you got that week after the end of that week after the seedings come out can sometimes be very, very significant. So again, and Merriwood North Rib Lake continues to be very impressive. They beat both Prentice on Friday 66-47 and Shawamigan 58-48, champions of the Merriwood North and a number 1 seed. It's going to be very interesting to watch Rib Lake. I think again, what they've been able to accomplish, they've been very competitive against the best of the Merriwood South as well. By far, they're the team that I think can make the most noise in the conference. And I'm still a little, again, I know that Athens lost a lot, but they've been a pretty good program for a number of years, and they just had struggles, and they lost a couple of close ones, 68-62 to Shawamigan, 63-60 to Abbotsford. It's just been a bit of a rough go of it for the Blue Jays this year.
Yeah, let's start with Rib Lake, 18-5, 11-4 overall. Northern Conference champions for the Merriwood. They've seemed to win in a handful of ways too, where they, like you said, they've been competitive with some of the tough Southern teams, which is really good. They squeak out a couple in the Northern teams when they have to. So winning in a variety of ways, I think, is a big deal. Earn the number 1 seed. I think they're, like you said, a team to watch. Jumping to Athens, interesting, young lineup. Play a handful of sophomores. They've replaced a bunch of starters from the teams that have run a lot of success for them over the years. I jump into them, and also to Newman, who I think is playing a little better down the stretch here in some of the games that they're playing with the competitiveness that they're showing up with. I think for them, they're going to reap the benefits a little bit about playing some of these bigger divisional teams within the conference, the D4 teams. And now you slide into Division 5. And I think you're going to see that. Can Athens, squeak one out of there, because they might see another conference. Well, they're going to see another conference full right away in Prentice. Right. But getting beyond that, maybe they can find a way to knock off some of these other D5 teams. I think for Newman, when they jump into theirs, it's going to be you're going to see a different pace from playing in the Merriwood, is I guess what I'm getting at.
And we're going to talk about that later, because again, I think certain teams are still underseeded because the overall record is not good.
Right.
And again, I don't think that the strength of the schedule is actually weighted maybe at the level it should be, but that's something we'll talk about later. And I wanted to touch real quickly on Northern Lutheran, because again, I noticed, and I'm going to preview it, they were a number 9 seed in the D5 in that same bracket as Newman is the number 11, despite the fact that they play in vastly different conferences. And last week, Northern lost to White Lake, the team that Newman will be playing next week from the CWC North. White Lake beat Northern to 49-45 Friday. Andrew Weekman 20, Mitchell Croct. And I was thinking about that, Mitchell Croct, who was our first guest during the winter, and it feels like it was a long time ago at the very start of the year. Had a double-double, 14 points, 11 rebounds. And then Monday in a non-conference game, Northern lost to Pittsville 58-52. Again, haven't been able to see Northland. It's been at times, sort of up and down, but I'm curious to see what they do in the postseason.
Yeah, it's just because it's hard to say. I mean, I go in debates with whether it's with family members, whether it's with friends, people at school. How you tell, when you argue which conference is the best. Sometimes it's like who's winning the most playoff games. But like for the Merrillwood, they're going to wail on each other, so you're going to lose some of the wins.
But it's actually, you're going to learn more about what Assumption and Newman do in Division 5 than maybe what the teams do in Division 4.
Right, because they don't have. So Northern, a little bit of the unknown coming out of there. The record, they're 5-4 overall in their conference, but they're 6-14 overall. And looking at some competitive foes, maybe a little bit down this year. Things haven't gelled yet. But we're gonna have to watch how that plays out. They have a higher seed than some teams that I think might be a little more powerful than them, so to speak, on the floor. So we'll see, how that goes and where that ends up, and how they can finish out against some of those teams in their playoff bracket.
We're going to leave it there for now because we have to bring in our first guest coming up in 2 minutes. We'll be talking to the head girls basketball coach of the 22-2 Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers, who are a number 1 seed in their Division 3 bracket. We'll talk to Nick Mechelke coming up next. And don't forget, at 7 o'clock, our student athlete guest for this week from Merrill. And again, we always like it when our guests come in after a win or a good performance. I think we may have set a record in all the years I've been doing this show that a student athlete guest having the best game you could possibly have the night before coming in, as Maya Ott scored 53 points last night, including 14 3-point field goals in the Blue Jays' playoff win last night over Ashland. So she'll be joining us at 7 o'clock. We're going to take a break and come back in 2 minutes. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Playoffs underway in girls high school basketball. Last night was the tip-off of the postseason for a number of teams, but a number of teams are still waiting before they actually get underway, and one of those teams will be tipping off on Friday in Division 3, the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers. Again, 22 wins, 2 losses on the campaign, number 1 seed in their bracket, and we're very happy to welcome to the program Nick Mechelke, the head girls basketball coach at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood High School. And Coach, number 1, appreciate it because obviously Witt-Birn off on the edge of our focus here, but been following your team, been very impressed with your team so far this season, and very happy to have you come on in and talk about the Chargers.
Thanks for having me. Kind of a late notice.
And you can get a little bit closer.
All right.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Well, I guess to start things off, 22 wins, 2 losses on the campaign. I guess if you were to give our listeners a thumbnail sketch of your season so far, beyond the fact that you're winning games at an exceptionally high clip, what have you seen from your team in terms of this season? Have you seen what you expected when you started practice, back in the fall?
I got a lot of questions going into the summer of this year of what we were going to expect, knowing that we lost a big scorer in Reese Rogowski last year, who was a phenomenal athlete and basketball player, to, hey, we're going to bring in 3 or 4 freshmen, and what is it going to be like? And I told everybody we're going to win some games that we shouldn't win, and probably lose some games that we should win. And, it's come down to, I have a group of girls that work hard and want to win. And right now, that's what it's coming down to it.
And, Coach, looking at your, again, so, like Chad said, we're on the outskirts a little bit, so we get to watch and figure out what we can on paper through what the internet gives us and stuff. But how about, just the conference? How looking at your conference, how you guys are battle tested. Obviously, Bondwell's only a tough. Is a tough team. They're not anything easy ever, but you guys have just consistently got bulks of wins, and the girls just keep trucking along. And I don't know, give us a little insight on how your conference schedule went.
Our conference is pretty competitive. We have Bondwell, who's been in. I think those seniors have been in 3 sectionals. They are well disciplined, well coached, and to play them twice a year, they're a good basketball team. The second time we had them on the ropes, and a team that has been in that type of game multiple times and big games, they just kind of found a way and pushed our limits, and we kind of fell apart a little bit. And I think that's a little to deal with the experience we have, but I think we're learning from it, especially from that second loss. I think it's kind of a little sour taste in our mouths for the girls and we kind of went on a roll of, I think, our 10 last games after that, where we played Amherst, who Amherst is with Scout Spadoni, a great post player that if we win, we could see her again. To Shiocton, an Omni Indian who has some good 3-point shooters, and they love to shoot the 3-pointer. And it's very kind of diverse of what we see throughout the course of the season of both, defensively, we see a lot of zone. We see some man. I think we're a tough matchup with this kind of speed that we have.
It was quick. You mentioned you have a young group, and anything you've really had to do and push a little, because sometimes young players, it's a different level when you're hopping to that varsity or you're replacing, like you said, such a prolific scorer that you had last year. Although it looks like you got some nice replacements in some of the numbers that the girls put up this year. Anything that really had to be done from like a leadership standpoint, or was that all naturally built in, or things you had to push a little bit with the girls?
I have my captains. One's a Faith Rush. She's a junior. She was a captain as a sophomore. And then I have Rory Selvison, who is a captain, she's a sophomore, and she's my leading scorer right now, who averages 20 points a game. She's a phenomenal
Actually,
athlete.
21 and a half. give her the full credit.
You tie in another sophomore of, Milena Grandquist, who averages a double-double, I think 18 and 10, to a sophomore, Bree Latica. And then you go to some freshmen, and, of my Kid Stewart, my senior, who kind of just went down an injury, we just said, hey, it's next one up, and one of those girls is going to be a freshman. And they have learned from making mistakes all year to fine-tuning those all season, and it's for me and the coaching staff to put them in successful situations as well as everybody else. It's not to put them in the fire where they can make a mistake. It's, hey, how can we put these girls in success and knock down a shot or get to the free throw line or put them in a situation to get a steal and an easy basket? So,
what is the dynamic when you have obviously you said it, your two leading scorers are both sophomores. In terms of having such young players having such a leadership role, and whether it's the scoring, as you said, as well as being in captains, how's the dynamic been with your group? Because obviously talent is one thing, interpersonal relationships and dynamics within the locker room and on the practice court are vital as well. Apparently it's working pretty well. How has that been? Because it is a little unusual to see so much in underclassmen in terms of leadership for a team that has been as successful as your team has been.
I think we got some great continuity. This group is fun. Sometimes too fun. They like to mess around. We got multiple different types of personalities on this team. We got with the privilege of getting a 1 seed, we went to the game last night and watched them. We had a good bus ride, ate together. They do a lot of stuff together, but it's great. It's like the upperclassmen. I gotta say, Faith. They kind of take those freshmen and under their belt, and it's like a little family that they have together. They get along, and I think that helps a lot.
Again, we're talking to Nick Mechelke, the head girls basketball coach of Wittenberg-Burnhamwood High School. Chargers will be opening up their playoffs coming up against Wapaka at home on Friday night. You mentioned the game against Bondwell, and actually the 2 games against Bondwell, because the first time around at your place, it was a rough night. And one thing I know that coaches always want to see is improvement as the season goes on. And then the second time, as you said, you went in there and it sounds like you dominated in the first half. You went into the locker room with a double-digit lead against this Bondwell team that ultimately did not lose a game in conference all season long. Obviously, they were able to come back and I think win by 4 points, if I'm not mistaken. But at the same time, you had to have seen steps in that game as well. Could you compare the 2 meetings with Bondwell and what your team did a lot better the second time around, especially in that first half?
Well, the first game we played them, they manhandled us. They shot, I believe, 67% from the three-point line in the first half, and shooting deep, like 2-3 feet behind the three-point line. And I'll tell you what, I'll let anybody shoot out there. But they made them, and that was, I think, a 15-point lead, or maybe close to 20 at halftime. We made some adjustments that game, and if you look at the box score, we outscored them, I think, by 7. But not enough time in a game, but to make those little adjustments at halftime and say, hey, we can't do this, but we got to play better defense. And then playing the second time, our pressure was a little bit better. We made some easy baskets. We took advantage of some turnovers in the first half. We executed on offense. We knocked down those 3-pointers in that first half to have that 14-point lead. Eventually, we kind of, lost as the game went on. We kind of lost that lead with 3 minutes. But our girls have been really good at game prep right now with the teams the second time around. That's watching film. That's, doing all the scouting that we do and watch and understanding the situations. I'm going to say our biggest adjustment was probably from when we played Amherst the first time to the second time, where I think they had 41 points total in the second game. I think we still won by like 25. But to go into that environment in Amherst and the quality basketball program that they have there, and it was probably our best basketball game. And I said, hey, we can't let Scout score 30 points or 20 points and beat us in the post. And I think she ended up with two at the half, and we held them to 6. And that was probably the best defense that we played all year. And to hold them to 6 till half is, you can't say that's bad basketball. You got to be pretty happy as a coach of kind of installing that, and them doing that scouting and putting into play is awesome.
And turning towards Friday night, you got Wapaka. I'm assuming, you just said about the game prep, girls getting ready. We went and watched the game live. A lot of good strategies, I think, to do when you have that time off to still continue to bond as a team and see what that opponent's all about. And I always thought it was always a great idea to throw a little intimidation. Then we're really serious. We're walking into your gym to watch. What are you going to see out of Wapaka on Friday night? And at the end of the night, for your team to be successful, what do you want to see out of your girls?
Well, the good thing for us is we've been seeing a lot of zone. We're a tough match. We've seen, I think, a 1-2-2 zone what Wapaka is going to play 3 or 4 times this year. So we knew that going in, watching some previous games before we went to the game last night. So we're starting to put in stuff on Monday because played Peshtigo before earlier in the season, so we kind of knew what they had and what they were going to do. So we were kind of prepping for Wapaka, and we may have one of the tougher games in that first round. Wapaka has won 6 out of their last seven games, I think, in the Northeastern Conference, which is usually a tough conference. They get battled kind of every night. They don't get the non-conference games that everybody else does since it's a big conference. They got a young group of sophomores mixed with a couple juniors and a senior. They got number 1, who's their guard, I think it's Bouchard, who is a very good athlete and plays very aggressive and plays on top of their zone, who averages 13 points a game. But you go from her to three big post players. And for us losing a post player, it's going to figure out how we can handle this defensive switch with my personnel, and can we handle their post. So they get about probably 20 points from their post, and it's hopefully we can stop that on Friday.
In the years that I've coached high school stuff, I always found it sometimes difficult with the younger players because they want to do well in the immediate moment, but they don't also get that they're going to take a blink of an eye and their high school career is going to be done. I guess I'm just asking on the side because you talked about how awesome the youth has been in your program this year. Do you ever find yourself having to battle that, or are they always pretty in tune and you don't have to worry about it?
We've been, for the last probably couple of weeks, we've been talking about, us being on top of the conference of we have everything to lose. They have everything to gain. Every team has everything to gain from playing us. We have the opportunity of, we have one senior, 2 seniors on the team, Kit, who plays and now is played her last game, more than likely. We've talked about, especially today, that Friday could be our last game. Like seeds don't matter, records don't matter. It's whoever's playing the best that night. And you got to go in there and play your best that night, or you got to play better than them that night. So, yeah, we've been talking about it. I think with young kids, they either come out and ready to play, or you get the other end of, hey, this is tough. I'm scared. I'm freaked out. So we've been up to the challenge so far, and I haven't really seen that in the youth as much, especially our sophomores and freshmen. I think we're getting to be that battle-tested team going into the playoffs.
Let me ask you about those 2 sophomores that have provided so much production. I remember last year when we talked about Witt-Birn, it would be Reese Vergowski and Rory Salveson. They'd be talking about the senior and the freshman. And it seemed like every night they would almost trade off in terms of leading your team in scoring, and you had great production from a freshman in Rory Salveson. This year, it's been Rory Salveson and Milena Granquist. It seems like every time that we're talking about them, but this time it's a couple of sophomores. Let's talk about Rory first, because obviously she jumped right in as a freshman last season and it seemed like a very consistent performer for your team. How has she improved maybe as a player this year? Obviously a different role, because when you had the senior to kind of lean on, it's different. Can you talk about her development in the last 2 years and 2 outstanding years to start her high school basketball career?
She was lucky to play behind Reese right away. Reese got the pressure last year, and Rory got to kind of fill in, play off of her, where everybody was, hey, we need to stop Reese. But in our head is, well, we got these other two too, especially one in the post and another guard that is almost equal to speed between Reese and Rory. And Rory coming in this year, people know who they have to stop, and she's tough. She is a competitor in everything. 4.0 student. I mean, she doesn't want an A-, she wants an A. If it's Phi Ed, she wants to win. That's her competitive nature. She hates losing, and you can't say, hey, I don't want that on my team. And then you go with Milena a little bit, and she gets to fall on, hey, people take away Rory, and maybe Rory has an off night, and, well, here goes Milena for 20 plus. And it is to be able to fill those shoes and bounce off of each other. They just work well to each other, and they always have since 4th grade. When you have two girls in the same class that been able to work together like they do, it's great to have.
As far as this weekend, it's always an interesting weekend because obviously you got to take care of business Friday, but everybody knows that it's a Friday, Saturday. And this first weekend is always, I think, one of the most interesting weekends. How do you look at it as a coach? Because obviously there's a lot on the plate this week, isn't there?
One game at a time.
That means a late night? Okay, hoping that you do what you have to do on Friday. This means a late night on Friday, basically.
Well, lucky for us, if we come out on top, we get a chance to play one of our conference opponents again.
That's true.
Which helps. Where we already seen them twice throughout the season, but for me and the coaching staff, we can look ahead. I had my coaching staff look ahead at Wapaka last week. I was still prepping for our last week of the season. So it's always nice when you have, some coaches that will take on that leadership role of doing some scouting and breaking stuff down before we get to this point. It is. You have to. That game is over, and it's in 5 minutes. You're getting ready for the next game. I said we're lucky enough to have two conference teams that we have played so far, but yeah.
And Coach, looking just at the playoff run that everybody wants to have, you don't want to be stopped. You don't want it to be your last night. You're preaching to the girls that we got to make the most every moment because we want to be playing the next possible chance we get to and not have to wait again for a whole nother season. One thing for you to come out with, obviously the W on Friday and keep your playoff season rolling and more W's as those games progress. What's one thing your team really has to hold true that will make them winners? And maybe one thing that has caused some games to be tougher for you that you don't want to see?
The big thing right now is our defense. I think our kids, I don't know if they love playing defense or that hard as they do, but they do it and they do it well. If we can rely on that and our speed that we have, I think that's a tough matchup for anybody. And just because you can't mimic our speed and what we do with other teams, that's the hardest thing. If I put our team on a track, I think we could put a state relay together. And they're not all track athletes. But we're quick and we're smart and we play aggressive. That's the one thing. If there's something that gets in our way, we lost a post player. It's that size factor that could stop us or could get in our way from being successful, or playing overly too aggressive style that we want, depending on the reffing situation. That's a tough call. You never know how the game's going to get reffed or called, and then you got to adjust in situations. We just got to play smart basketball, and we kind of been talking about that since last Thursday. After we had that little injury, and hopefully our ability to score a lot of points and play good defense. When we can hold teams to say under 35, I think our average is 32.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna win a lot of games, I think.
And I guess finally, you've mentioned a couple of times this injury from a senior, and obviously with all these young players there, have you played a game since this injury, or is this going to be your first game?
This will be our first one. That was the last game.
That's difficult, isn't it? I mean, where you have no chance to kind of the pieces have been there, and now a big piece comes out. First of all, again, who's the young lady?
Kit Stewart.
And obviously it's got to be incredibly disappointing for her.
Good defender, senior starter. Just kind of a freak accident, knee injury, and we came into Thursday, and I said, hey, we dealt with this in the beginning of the season. We didn't have Rory for 2 games in the beginning of the season, and threw in a freshman to start and handled it. It's the end of the season. We flip-flop it, and it's next one up. And, we've been practicing well, and, she's been a good support system right now. And hopefully she goes to a doctor tomorrow and gets her MRI and checks everything out. And hopefully it is, I'm going to say, decent news for her, but I think we all know what it's going to be, which is it's sad for us. And you don't want to see anybody go through that. I don't care who it is or what athlete. You never want to see that happen.
Head coach Nick Mechelke. Jeff, any final point you want to
Well,
ask?
no, I love the picture you painted with the youth, because again, like Chad said, Witt-Birn's kind of on the outskirts of everything we get to see, and it's cool to see the success you've had, how well the girls are doing in your program, the excitement you got coming up with the playoffs, but to be able to do it with youth, I think is even just an extra pat on the back, because that's not easy to do, because that youthfulness always isn't ready to go right away, and they always got more moments yet if they're not graduating. So I think that's a big deal and an appreciation on our end for the success for your program to do it with that young talent.
It is. When you have 2 sophomores and three sophomores, 3 freshmen, and you throw in Faith, who was a bulldog for us, and you go 22-2 with that group, and to understand what you did in our conference with this group is, they don't lose anybody next year.
Yeah.
And if we make a run in the playoffs, and we went from Division 4 to Division 3, and it's to those teams, they don't lose anybody next year either. And if you can make a run like that, we're not to the Laconia stage, but they've made runs with all their youth. It just gives them that competitive, edge a little bit, understanding that, hey, we can do this. We were freshmen last year, or I should say this year, and sophomores and juniors for the next year, that we should be able to go right in the season, probably maybe one of the conference favorites going into next year. It's awesome to hear when you're going with probably, a couple seniors and
it's also
3 juniors and 3 sophomores.
And it's also really cool to go into that situation looking ahead based on the success you've had, not based on the potential you've had. You've actually had girls that have shown they can do it already. Right. That's actually even, because often they'll say, well, we got X number of players back or production back coming off a team that was 500. Right. And then we're going to take a step forward. 22-2, only losses against your conference champ. That's a whole different level.
We've had Rory come out and score 8 points and not have a good game, and then got a kid that like Harper Rogowski came in, and I think she's had 17 2 games and 15 here and 11 here, and that's a freshman guard coming off the bench. It's always nice to have that and to rely on.
Well, Coach, number one, again, 22-2 in the season you've had so far. Congratulations. And hopefully you'll get those freshmen and sophomores a whole lot more experience over the next couple of weeks. But starting off on Friday night, best of luck against Wapaka at the Witt-Birn Gym.
Time will tell, and thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Coach Nick Mechelke of the Witt-Birn Chargers. We're going to come back, talk about the playoffs in the girls' high school basketball that are underway last night and continuing later this weekend, coming up in 2 minutes. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Menke GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Menke GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Menke GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at menkeauto.com. Menke GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to Wittenberg-Burnhamwood head girls basketball coach Nick Mechelke. And again, boy, I mean, it's something to have that kind of youth and to have that kind of success. And as I said, often we'll see teams that are projected after a lot of kids coming back. It's usually because they have a lot of kids back after a 500 season.
Right.
To have a team that's 22-2, and I'm very curious, and I think you hit it on the head as well, talking about that youth going into the playoffs now. It's going to be it is different. I mean, whenever you go to a venue, no matter what sport it is during a playoff night, it is different.
Well, it just depends on the makeup of the other team. I think it's a dangerous moment when you're playing a senior-laden team, if that's the case of the lineup against you, because those kids have no tomorrow. Sophomores, juniors, there is a next season, and that's always there, even though they're going to lay it on the line. But it sounds like, from what Wittenberg's done so far, they've been battle tested in a lot of different ways. They're already through they're going to have another moment on Friday where they're battle tested. So I was just impressed with. I didn't know they had all that youth. I know they had some, but when he was describing the lineups and the rotations, there's a lot there. Go ahead.
Well, let's look at girls high school basketball. I think we should briefly touch on the end of the regular season because the playoffs are underway. Anything in the Wisconsin Valley Conference to kind of tie the bow. Obviously, Stevens Point and Marshfield did the job. They finished things off. They split their season series. They tie at 11-1 in the conference. Wausau West finished third in the conference. Again, it was a top-heavy league this year. The top two teams were head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. What I saw out of the two teams in the top of the valley were Spash and Marshfield going back and forth a little bit. They got some W's that on paper you could tell they were going to get, with Spash beating Rapids in their last non-conference game, and Marshfield beating West. So, kind of what's expected of what you saw out of those teams. And then other teams just kind of vying for spots and kind of looking to establish themselves, whether they've had, newer coaches take over the helm or there's different divisions, things like that. That's, I think, going to be one of the interesting things going forward, is to see how your conference, if you're a lower divisional team and there's, say, a D1 versus a D2, how did that battle of your conference schedule set you up to go into your and fight against some teams that now are matching you in terms of enrollment, in terms of divisional basis.
Let's talk about the Valley teams in the playoffs then. Let's jump right to that. Division 1, you have the 2 conference champions. Stevens Point is a number 5 seed. Marshfield's a number 7 seed. So obviously not getting the same respect that the boys are getting, because we'll talk about it later, where the Valley's actually moved right to the top. But you got Stevens Point, a number 5 seed. So obviously to get through this weekend, it's going to take a road win in all likelihood. They do open against Wausau West on Friday night. Stevens Point beat West pretty easily both times, but Wausau West does have a little bit of size. I think, again, is third time, there's going to be no secrets. But West at Stevens Point, and then the other part of that bracket, number 4, Eau Claire Memorial, number 13, Oshkosh North. Stevens Point did win at Eau Claire Memorial just a week ago, so obviously they are going to be confident if they have to face them again. Then you got Marshfield. You're number 7 seed. That's not easy, because number 10 Holman in the first round, and if you get through that, likely it'll be Hudson, the number 2 seed on Saturday. So it's not going to be easy for either of these WVC champions to get through.
No, and for Spash, I remember the years where we jumped around between D5 and D4, and all of a sudden when we got into that D5, you'd see some of the conference teams back right away. And I always liked the playoffs and getting out and playing somebody we haven't played at all. Just somebody we're more unfamiliar with, somebody we could learn about, somebody we could see where our team stands against a different opponent. So for Spash, and you got that cliche there where you've beat them twice. What are they going to bring? I mean, they're going to have some seniors that don't want it to be their last game on the team for West. They're going to have it's the third time you got to try to knock a team down, and we've seen it happen where it gets difficult to beat that team the third time around. So I think for Spash, looking to jump out, hold West. It's at their own gym, and then the next day is never tough. It's hard. I think I was talking to somebody at school the other day. It's tough to be in some of these divisions and think, how long do we have to hold on to? Because you get to some pretty tough games at second round already. It's not like, okay, we could get to the regional final. We've got teams we can own. A little bit more difficult. For Marshfield, not knowing too much about Holman, there's a little bit different opponent, but obviously a much tougher road when they get that first win, jumping to the number 2 seed right away. The numbers in the seeding don't help them in the second game. It's just much more difficult against a good team like Hudson.
DC, and the thing about it as well is Hudson came to Marshfield for that Christmas tournament, so there is some familiarity there. But they've showed they're very good as well.
They won that game.
Yes, they did. And DC Everest saw their season end last night. They fell to Eau Claire North 61-41. Wisconsin Rapids, number 14 seed. They travel to Neenah and Allie Zabel coming up on Friday night, so that will not be an easy trek for the Lincoln Red Raiders.
And one of the tougher ones we've talked about, like with Norbert Durst was on. You got some of these prolific players, and based
they're a number 3 seed.
Yeah, and they're a number 3 seed, technically not given the oomph in terms of that numbering that they're going to make it down.
It's hard to believe that a kid that's going to UConn is on a team that's a number 3 seed. That shows, again, there's a great depth right now in girls high school basketball in Division 1. We got Hortonville number 1, Hudson number 2, Neenah number 3, Eau Claire Memorial number 4, Stevens Point number 5. I mean, really some really good teams in that bracket, and another piece of evidence on why we need more teams in Division 1 going to state.
Yep, I agree with you.
Division 2 has a couple of Valley teams. Wausau East last night saw their season end at River Falls. A long trek for the Jacks. They lose 62-51. I was disappointed for East that they didn't get a W last night, because I think it's been a solid year, and also because they do have a lot of seniors. And obviously it's going to be, I think, again, a reset for Wausau East next year. But they were an exciting team this year.
Yeah, from you and I following Central Wisconsin basketball, you would have liked to see those seniors going on top with a win or two into the playoffs, especially after what they've tried to build to reestablish East a little bit in the girls' side of the Valley, as well as just we've seen them play a couple times. We've had Coach on, and just to describe that team of what those seniors have meant to trying to build back East girls basketball from where they've had some struggles throughout the year. So, tough loss. Obviously, it's never easy when you have a bulk of seniors and you have to say goodbye and it's their last moment in the locker room.
A couple of other area teams were in action last night. Merrill, we'll be talking about their game coming up in a few minutes, but Merrill defeated Ashland last night, 83-66. Our student-athlete guest, Maya Ott, had 53 in that game. So now Merrill goes to Lakeland. And obviously the Lakeland Thunderbirds are a sectional champion a year ago, made it to the state semifinals. That's, again, I mean, it's not going to be an easy trip, but you got the opportunity now.
Yeah, well, and for Merrill, ended with a win in the conference against DC Everest, which was a nice one to come off on and finish your conference schedule out on. Get a nice first-round win beating Ashland significantly in terms of 83-66. And, you get to the point where this is the playoffs. There's seeds, and you're going to see teams that you can go in there think you're capable of being and teams that you're going to have to work your tail off to get. And I think if you got a team and a program and they're up for the challenge, they're going to put their best step forward and they're going to rise to that occasion and know that it's not going to be easy. And at the end of the day, I mean, I've told numerous teams I've worked with, at the end of the day, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say you gave your best effort and you honestly say I did everything I can and somebody's a little more talented, a little more better, or it just wasn't your night, that goes a long way, not only as you are as a person, but I think it goes a long way in your life when you're giving your best effort on every little thing you do.
And that bracket has Medford there as well. They defeated New Richmond last night, 64-36. So you got the winner of Merrill Lakeland moving on to play Saturday against the winner of Rice Lake Medford. Rice Lake number 3 seed, Medford number 6. Rice Lake and Lakeland just played a week and a half ago as well. And Lakeland went on the road and won that game. So, again, it's an interesting bracket. Also in this bracket, Mosinee will be playing on Friday. They're number 4 seeded. They take on number 5 seeded Hayward. Mosinee got a nice win against Rhinelander recently. Again, turned around when they had lost earlier in the season at home.
Yep.
So Mosinee's got, again, in Talon Jersley, some firepower, and they get the home game against the Hayward Hurricanes. If Mosinee wins that one, in all likelihood, they would take on number 1 seed Menominee from the Big Rivers. They host River Falls on Friday. So that bracket kind of sets up for, I think, some interesting matchups both Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, I think Mosinee for having the number 4 seed, which, that last win against Rhinelander could have helped that cause a little bit to get them up into the notch another win, not only in their conference, but also in their overall record. So to have that home court advantage on the first game is definitely what you want as a team and a program. For the Lakeland, Rice Lake, Medford, Merrill, all those teams have some style, that things going for them. We know what Lakeland has in terms of their scoring and the record they've created throughout the season. For Merrill, coming off 2 nice wins with their first win and getting high productivity out of players in terms of the scoring category. And when you talked to Coach Wimette, I think it was at the West game, she had mentioned Medford, how they were coming alive and they got a significant win against New Richmond. So we'll see and how all that tails in with Rice Lake, who Lakeland beat by 3, I think makes for an interesting couple sets of games there to see who comes out on top.
We're going to talk more about the brackets on the girls' basketball playoffs coming up, but we have to come back here at the top of the hour. In 2 minutes, we'll talk to our student-athlete guest for this week from Merrill High School, Maya Ott. Again, she had a massive game last night against Ashland, set the career scoring mark for Merrill High School. We'll talk to her about last night and talk about the season and her career as well. Again, Maya Ott coming up in 2 minutes as we continue here on this Wednesday evening Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
Winter sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rib Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rib Mountain today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
Now you can organize and create lasting memories by converting your photos and memories into digital photos you can share with family and friends. Picks and Pieces will create your custom photo books and slideshows that are perfect for family gatherings, weddings, or any special events. You'll receive your finished product on an external hard drive or cloud service of your choice. For easy viewing and sharing, contact Melissa at Picks and Pieces Photo Management and Digital Organization at 446-0762. Email mel@picksandpieces.com. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Time now for our student-athlete guest for this week from Merrill High School, Blue Jay girls basketball, Maya Ott. And Maya, first of all, thank you for coming on over.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's obviously a good night, and I say to Jeff all the time, we like it when our guests come in after a good game. And we like it when a coach comes in after a win. We like it when a player comes in after a good performance. And I think you set a record in terms of the best performance coming into our show in the years we've been doing it. As last night in your first round playoff game against Ashland, scored 53 points, 83-66 win for the Blue Jays over the Ashland Ordockers. And to add to it, going into it, you needed 52 points to set the all-time career scoring mark for Merrill High School. So number one, you get 53. Number two, you set the record. What was the night like, number one? I mean, was it right from the time you walked into the gym? Were you feeling it? And just talk about the experience of last evening.
Well, we've been, the days leading up to our practice, we wanted, of course, had two goals in mind. One to win, and then two to get me as many shots as I can. And we were able to do that, and I couldn't do it without my teammates helping me. And knowing that my teammates had my back really made me feel great, and them looking for me every time they possibly could help me hit my shots, I think, a lot.
And we talked off air and just asked, because sometimes you have those nights and you really have to work at it, and other nights it's just the flow and you can kind of get in the groove and not have to think about it. Was there, when you're taking, you're hitting those shots and you're finding those openings, did you just feel in the flow, and did you feel like everything was coming pretty natural and you could find those looks? You mentioned that they played a zone, which you were looking for the openings. I guess give us a little bit of the experience of how how much fun that was.
It was very fun. We had a pretty big crowd there for our playoff night, so that helped to have big exciting environment to play in, and I think that just made everyone be able to play a ton better, having that, and
Well, and we know from, just from talking to Coach DeBoer and what you what he shared about you guys as a team and things earlier in the season, from following your team throughout the season. I'm assuming during the games, you have kids hanging by you have kids making it difficult. You're working really hard, so there's fatigue level and mindsets and all that stuff set in. So maybe it was kind of a nice night to just get in the flow and set it up and do it in that environment, and to accomplish all those things. How much of a momentum help is that going forward for your next games? Or confidence booster,
yeah,
whatever it is.
It's a great confidence boost. The games leading up to Ashland, I haven't been shooting the best. So it was finally nice to have a game where I found my shot again, found my rhythm, and like going into Lakeland, I'm really confident in like my shooting ability now, and like going to take whatever opportunity I can to get open looks to shoot as many threes as I can.
Let's take a step back to the whole career, because this is your third year as a varsity player. And the program itself has been taking strides, because I think back when you first started, how many games did you win as a sophomore? Not a lot, right?
Yeah, it was only 4. I think we were 4-20.
So basically, it's a program, and that was Coach DeBoer's first year as well. It's been growing each of the 3 years. What's been the key, number one, both within the program itself and the greater success you've had the last couple of years, and the improvements in your game? Could you maybe talk about where you have become a better player in the last 3 years, and how much did going through a tough first year actually maybe toughen you up and help you in terms of making the strides?
After like going 4-20, like I did not want to have that season happen again, so I put in like extra effort like during the summer and that fall, and like each year, last year same. I just wanted to do better, so I kept working out harder and harder.
What areas have you taken the biggest strides in as a basketball player?
Well, for right now, like last summer, I worked a ton on my 3-point shots. I haven't been that great of a 3-point shooter shooter the last couple of years. So that's what I really worked on over the summer, and I also worked on like being more of a stepping into like the point guard role. So I did a lot of ball handling to like be more prepared this year after losing Elena last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very tough.
Being the point guard, obviously just associated with that spot is extra leadership roles and taking on that. I guess, looking back at your career a little bit and what the years you've played on varsity and been part of the Merrill Blue Jays basketball program in total, how has your leadership grown, do you think? Has it from the time you were a sophomore till now?
Well, my leadership, I feel like I just knew I had to like step up as a player, and like I wanted like more people to like be able to like follow me, like trust me, and like being able to put in a lot of those effort outside of like the actual school practices, like putting in effort outside, like has made my other teammates like look more up to me, and like hopefully I hope they make themselves want to do better just the same as me.
Again, we're talking to Maya Ott, senior for the Merrill High School girls basketball team here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
And looking at, again, being the point guard, I think point guards need to analyze their team a little bit more, because there can be certain times where you can really pick them up. You can wrangle them back in. You can help a little bit extra just because of, you have that role. So there's extra moments of the game that you have, I think, extra control on, and that you can maybe see a little bit better from that general leadership spot. Looking at your team now, seeing them over the whole season and seeing them perform last night and the stuff you were able to do in the first playoff game, what do you really like about your team right now that Lakeland's going to have to focus on, and things that you're really enjoying about what your team's able to do right now on the floor?
Well, right now us sharing the ball really helps. It's going to be hard to like be able to guard us when we're all like passing around, and like we're not selfish. We don't have selfish players on this team, so that like it's nice. It's harder to guard us.
Outside of yourself, who are some of the other girls that have been keys to the success for your team so far this year?
I feel like definitely Sophie Wendorf. She has been stepped up tremendously from the past couple of years, and like she's a girl I can always rely on. Like her threes always falling. It's like, and then also Maddie Ott, my twin sister. She has really stepped up as well. She's taken like more into the point guard role as well. Last year she came off the bench, so like now being our starting point guard, she has done an amazing job doing that.
You also have a freshman that stepped up as well. I mean, to have somebody that kind of adds to the mix, that had to have helped to take a further step from last year, correct?
Yeah, Grace Ryman has been tremendous this year. Like, no one could expect her to be like do that good as she is as a freshman. And, like, she has just stepped up a ton. Like, she gets her layups in. I'm sorry.
Okay. And looking at your just to step back into your conference schedule, which now let's start in the playoffs. Seems like it's been so long since you had your conference schedule played out. But how do you guys look at it, and you think it's a big deal? I think it is when you're the smaller divisions in your conference. Like you play a lot of Division I teams, and then I think you can get so hungry when you go into Division II playoffs because you've been battle tested. And when Coach DeBoer was on again, he shared kind of his philosophy and how he does schedules non-conference, because he's like, we're going to get tested big time in our conference with all these Division I teams. Do you see that a little bit? Is it fun to get tested that way, playing all those bigger schools?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, it helps me. I feel like it helps our whole team be more prepared for like playoffs and getting there. And like, it's the Wisconsin Valley Conference is a very tough conference to play in, and it just like makes us like grow as a team. And even though if we lose some of the teams, like we get to learn from it and move on and be ready for the next game.
And Chad and I talk off air sometimes how big a deal, how well these conference teams know each other, because you see each other in the youth levels, then you play each other again in middle school. Now you're playing each other in high school. Do you have a favorite team you've always looked forward to playing over the years? That's kind of been, I don't know if you can call them your rival. You can just call them your favorite team you want to play.
Yeah.
Do you have a rival?
I would have to say Wausau East for sure. Like we've always been battling. Like even at state, like in travel ball, like we would go at each other. And, like I always look forward to playing them.
Has there been a best win during your high school girls basketball career?
I would have to say Stevens Point from last year. It was a big upset for us.
I knew that was going to be your answer. That's why I asked you.
It was a great win. I can't remember. It might have been by 1 point or so, but it was like very unexpected. It was on our home court, which helped us a ton. Like helped us gain back a lot of confidence in our team, because we just like lost to Wausau East like one of the nights before, so it really helped us out.
When we'll step back, we'll come back to the basketball in a moment. But are you involved in any other sports?
Yes, I play softball as well.
What position do you play in softball?
First base.
Are you able to take success during the winter and transfer it to the spring if you have a good basketball season? And obviously, there's not a lot of time between the time you end your basketball season and go to softball. Are you able to take maybe momentum from one season to another?
I try to. Softball and basketball are like really different, and I put a lot of work into basketball, so I play like travel and school for softball, but I don't really put as much work as I do as basketball, so it's a little bit hard to like take that momentum to like the next sport.
Is it ever difficult too? Because I could tell your answer if we said, "Hey, pick your favorite sport," with no coaching repercussions or anything from that. Do you have? Do you see yourself in the same role? I mean, because sometimes if are you still a leader out on the softball field? Do you still try to take on those maybe extra responsibilities that you feel you need because you're an upperclassman as well as a leader that you want to be out in that sport?
I definitely try to. I know I'm a lot more vocal on the basketball court, and like on the softball field, it's a little more difficult for me. But I try and like still like step up as like a leader, do what I can, and help like the younger players get better as well.
Are a lot of the girls that you play basketball with on the softball team, or is it a different kind of group?
It's a different kind of group. I do play with Sophie Wendorf and Mackenzie Allenbecker for softball, but that's really it.
Is that a good thing, actually, though? Because then you have an opportunity to develop relationships with a different group of girls?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I have a lot more like friends on each side, so it's great.
What do you like to do when you're not involved in sports? Obviously, you spend a lot of time with your athletics, but if you need to get away for a little bit, what do you like to do?
I really like, besides playing sports, I also am really into weightlifting right now, and if I'm not doing that, I'm usually at home then like watching movies. I just love like all types of movies. So. What's
your favorite movie?
Oh, I would have to say like Shutter Island. It's a bit of a thriller movie, but like I really love the ending. Makes me like keep thinking about it.
Oh, very good.
And going forward, I know sometimes that people have their school finalized, and sometimes they're still thinking about certain things or waiting for stuff to play out. Have you finalized college of where you want to go?
Not quite yet. I'm really hoping to make a decision before the end of the week, but I'm really torn apart between where to play for basketball or just going straight to like just focus on my schooling. But
how hard of a decision is that? Because obviously you love basketball, and at the same time you have to make a decision maybe that's best for your future as well. I mean, it must be a hard decision.
Yeah, it's been really difficult, and like I didn't decide to play like. Right now, I'm really set on playing college basketball, and like I made that decision like earlier this year. So like a lot of the recruitment has been like happening this year, so it's been a lot of stress, but especially my senior year. But
so when you go to college or decide where you want to go make your next home, do you have I guess I know again sometimes seniors are graduating, getting in that freshman year of college. You have your idea that I want to be this or I want to do this occupation based on maybe any favorite classes that you've had or things you've gravitated toward on what you really like to learn. Do you have an idea what you'd like to major in?
I'm torn between just like I don't exactly know, but I'm kind of also leaning towards accounting. Like I haven't like really made up my mind yet, but it's.
So do you have a favorite class? One of your math classes? One of your favorite? Which one was your most favorite?
Well, it challenges me, but I like pre-calc right now. When I know what I'm doing, that's.
Why is it always that the kids that score the most points are always into math? I tell you, they got to keep track of those big
numbers. They can help
numbers.
with the statistics. Yeah, they know what's going on is the thing with the numbers. So
again, we're talking to Maya Ott from Merrill High School. 1,128 points. I bet you knew the number in her high school girls basketball career. Set the career mark just last night in the Blue Jays win over Ashland. Let's talk about Friday, because being an athlete, challenges are one of the big aspects. You love challenges, and that's a challenge. Lakeland won the sectional a year ago. They made it to the state tournament. You obviously know some of these girls that play for Lakeland, but at the same time, every good athlete says there's always a way. What does your team have to do on Friday night to give yourselves an opportunity against a really good basketball team?
Well, I think we really need to play a lot more faster, get the ball up the court on offense, try and take as many like easier shots as we can instead of like let them set up their press and then go into a tough zone. So that'll be good. That is one of our goals. And then also is like to like do our best rebounding because they have a lot of size. So if we can get those extra boards, that will help us out a lot.
And have you analyzed it the opposite way where, like because coaches put you in game film stuff, you're talking about that, they're harping on you maybe at practice about things. What have you seen from maybe the games that you lost where you felt your team could have played better throughout the season on some of those games that, hey, we can't get into this game and we can't do this? Is there anything that your team has to kind of stay away from that will ultimately not be in your favor on the scoreboard at the end of the night? Whether like too many turnovers.
Oh yeah.
Not knocking down good quality shots. Maybe it's something on the defensive end. Anything that comes to your mind.
It's definitely turnovers. Like we kind of struggle with like depending on the team. Like Marshfield has a very good press, like and good ball pressure. That like we struggle against having too many turnovers against them, and especially like with Lakeland they have a very good press. So like if we can limit the turnovers, I think there'll be a good shot at us winning.
Anything else before we go to our final question?
Well, yeah. What's in your opinion? Just totally opinion. What has been the best part about playing high school athletics for you?
Oh, I think the teammates for sure, and the environment. It's nothing like it, like playing with like your friends that you've been growing up throughout the years, like playing the same sport together, and like the high school environment. It's just great to have like a big crowd and like sometimes have like the band play for you. It's just nothing like it.
I guess I got another question. How is it playing with your sister?
Oh, it's great. Like we've been playing together, I think since the 4th or 5th grade, and like we know how we just work so well together. She doesn't like shooting the ball as much as I do, so she always gets me the ball, and like it's a great teamwork together.
How many siblings do you have?
I have a total of 3 siblings, an older sister, a younger brother, and Maddie.
And your brother plays for the boys team, doesn't he?
Yep, he's a freshman on the boys varsity team, so he's a very good competitor to go against during the summer and fall.
Who wins?
I feel it's. I'm not gonna lie. It is Tyson. He uses his size against me.
Yeah. And we always ask the final question to, especially seniors who have gone through the process, and you've obviously gone through the process in multiple sports, and you've been a varsity player on the hardwood for 3 years. And you obviously have some younger teammates who are just starting their process of going through high school athletics. Based on what you've learned, what piece of advice would you give a freshman that's starting their journey through high school athletics that you have found that maybe, hey, this is something to think about, this little piece of advice that will allow you to fully embrace all the good stuff that you're about to embark on? What piece of advice do you give a younger teammate?
I would say just don't stop shooting, like even after you miss. Like, I know one of my coaches like told me that, like, after I had like I had a couple of bad like shooting games, and like they would always like make sure like just like keep focus on the next shot, and like that's what these younger players need to do. They don't want to get like too much in their head, and then they'll just stop shooting altogether.
Confidence, right?
Yep, confidence is a big key in basketball
Very,
and in any other sport.
Absolutely. Anything else, Jeff?
Just congratulations on the bug night. Those are fun ones. I mean, I always used to remember some of the guys I coached, and it's like, man, they had 30 points. And then you see in the box scores when people get 40, 50. Those are some memorable nights that not everybody gets to experience. So enjoy that, and then best of luck as you see Lakeland in the next playoff game, and congrats on the win against Ashland also.
Thank you.
Maya Ott from the Merrill Blue Jays joining us as our student-athlete guest this week. We're going to come back, finish off our discussion of the girls' high school playoff brackets. We'll talk about what's going on in sectionals in hockey, and then also later on talk about the upcoming playoffs on the boys' side. So still plenty to talk about as we continue here. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
A look at the state individual wrestling tournament this weekend, plus girls hoops playoffs continue. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in two places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSNetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
The WIAA Individual Wrestling State Tournament is set for this weekend at the Kohl Center. A total of 560 boys wrestlers representing 211 different programs will compete, along with 192 girls wrestlers from 138 programs. There are 28 former boys state champions in the field, with 8 returning state title winners in girls wrestling. Of note, Connor Mirasola of West Bend West is looking to join Elite Company as a 4-time state champion, as he's unbeaten this year at 190 pounds. Likewise, Coy Hopke of Amory is pursuing a 4th state title, moving up to heavyweight in Division II this year. Cumberland senior Dawson Johnson is yet another wrestler hoping to win his 4th state title. He's a perfect 53-0 at 138 pounds in Division III. 7 other boys wrestlers are pursuing their 3rd WIAA state title. On the girls' side, Brooke Corrigan of De Pere, Haley Krieger of New London, and Siriana Reinwald of Horicon, all juniors, are trying to win their 3rd state titles in the 3rd year of official WIAA Girls Championships. Action starts Thursday and continues through the March of Champions on Saturday. Girls basketball playoffs will continue with regional semifinals on Friday and regional final contest held around the state on Saturday, which will also feature gymnastics and hockey sectional play. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And again, don't forget that if you miss any of the program or want to listen again, you can get it on the podcast page of bullfallsradio.com. Just go to sports and then you'll see our previous broadcast of play-by-play and the Big High School Sports Show right there. And you can also, wherever you get your podcast, just search out Big High School Sports Show. We were talking about girls high school basketball. Oh, I guess we should just say again, thanks to both of our guests, Nick Mechelke.
It's tough to pronounce. He even admitted to
I
that.
know.
He was a good sport about not saying his name right.
Well, you keep winning these games. And the thing was, I was saying to him as well, you get to the state tournament, they're going to have to know the names,
Yep.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
And also to Maya Ott as well. Really nice young lady, and congratulations on just a fantastic career and a memorable night last night as well.
Well, it's just, when I was explaining to Coach Nick kind of how the show ran, I told him that we say this every week, the best part is getting to talk to these high school coaches and student athletes and letting them kind of paint a picture of what their life is like playing for these programs. I just think that that's the special touch that high school sports have on a person's life.
Let's continue talking about the girls basketball playoffs going on this week. The regional finals in Division III on Friday include Wittenberg-Burnwood, number 1 seed, taking on number 8 seeded Wapaka. Wapaka defeated Peshtigo 60-40 last night. It was interesting to hear the coach talk about it, and I think it's a very important point to make that these teams that do, and we're going to talk more about this, I think, when we talk about the boys bracket, that some of these teams that play in very difficult conferences sometimes get underseeded because of the record and how much weight is put on the overall record when it comes to the computer seedings. And that you could see a team that is a number 8 seed that is better than the number 7 or the number 6 or even the number 5 seeds in some of these brackets. And he seemed to be very aware that this Wapaka team could be a handful.
Well, and it's tough because when you have a multitude of teams in your conference, you can't slide out and go get those other non-conference wins that can look good when the computer sees what's put into print into that standard. So I think that becomes one of those kind of under the radar type things that can both help and hurt you at the same time. So seeding at this point, you got to come play the game. You can't have a poor shooting night. You can't turn the ball over too many times. You got to be playing your A-level basketball, or when the chips aren't falling the right way, find a way to fight through it and grind it out as best you can from a coaching and a playing perspective. So those things all come into play, and we're still dealing with, high school athletes that, things can be difficult as things can come naturally. So I think it'll be an interesting mix to see what happens.
And also it'll be very interesting Saturday if they do play Amherst. Amherst is number 5. They're at number 4 Menominee Indian. But if it is Amherst or even Menominee Indian, they beat them both twice. But especially Amherst, because they had such a big win over them the last time around where they dominated. He said it. They played great.
Right.
But with freshmen and sophomores, do you have that little bit of, we came in there and we rolled them the last time? Yeah. That's always one of those things that when you do face a conference foe, that can be that bit of a wild card.
Yeah, you don't know what that swagger's going to be, and two ways to look at it. You should come in confidence. You beat them twice, but you just can't overlook anybody at this. It's one game and done if you don't do what you got to do in that course of those 2 halves that you have in that game, and you got to finish off the job. So be interested to see how it plays out. A lot of different elements in these games coming up.
Division 4 is different on the girls' side than the boys' side because all those Merriwood South teams that are in the same part of the bracket on the boys' side, they're split up.
Yep.
And you got one part of the bracket, Marathon last night, got past Ladysmith 45-42, so the number 8 seed Red Raiders travel to number 1 seed McDonald Central coming up on Friday night, and McDonald's been a really good program. We've seen them at the state tournament in recent years. Abbotsford last night defeated Colby, and talk about a short trek. Colby making the short trek over to Abbey last night, and Abbey won 52-35. They travel to number 4 seeded Stratford coming up on Friday. That part of the bracket. And then the bottom part of the bracket, Phillips is the number 2 seed. They take on number 7 Chautauqua Weyerhaeuser. If they win that one, they would face either number 3 Cameron or number 6 Cadott. It all seems to be lining up towards a McDonald-Phillips matchup eventually.
Yeah, I think if you had to judge where these teams are going to hit up, it's probably going to be those two, just because of what they've done in the regular season and kind of how you see them handling some of those early scored games early on, and then against the next tier of foes, that they should still be able to plug that out. And I those two programs have really earned it. I haven't seen McDonald play, but I know the tradition that they've had on the girls' side the last couple of years. But Phillips, you can't take them lightly at that too. They get up and down the floor. They got scoring punch out of the girls they have, and they really move the ball well.
And they've been in these kind of games the last couple of years. I think that experience could help them as well. That's Division 4 sectional number 1. In sectional number 3, you got Auburndale. They are a number 4 seed. They take on number 5 Whitehall on Friday. Number 1 seed is Neelsville in that bracket. That's a perennial power in the on the girls' side and the boys' side. Usually they're a little bit down this year on the boys' side, but number 1 Neelsville takes on number 8 Luther. So Auburndale, again, they've had their ups and downs this season. But it's always, but as you said, I think they probably like the fact they're away from some of these conference teams.
Yeah, I would. I mean, they got Whitehall at the number 5. Those 4 or 5 games are sometimes a little tricky to judge because according to the seeds, they should be relatively closely matched. But, Auburndale has had some very good games where they've come out, controlled tempo, controlled the flow of the game, played well, and then they've had some hiccups along the way where they've, barely pulled one out ugly, or they've lost one they shouldn't have and finished with that 15-9 mark. So I think for them, the toughest thing is I'd have to look at the bracket. Do they get Neelsville if they win that one at the 1-4?
Yes, they would. They would have to go to Neelsville on Saturday.
Yeah, so very tough second game against a very established program over in Neelsville.
D5, a lot of action last night in Division 5. The number 1 seed is Pacelli. They will face Three Lakes Phelps, who defeated Rib Lake last night, 43-35. Also in the top of the bracket, Athens, number 4 seed. They beat number 13 Marion, 75-15. Athens, of course, second in the Merriwood North. They will host Loyal Friday night. Loyal, number 5 seed, beat number 12 Rosholt, 58-23. Bottom half of that part of the bracket, sectional number 2, Columbus Catholic beat Northern Lutheran 59-16 last night, and they will travel to number 3 Greenwood, who beat number 14 Elko 53-16 last night. Number 7 Edgar beat Newman Catholic, the number 10 seed, 56-49 last night. They will take on number 2 seeded Pittsville, who beat Iola Scandinavia 59-28. Newman beat Edgar last week. We talked about that quirk of the schedule where you face the team that you're going to meet in the first round of the playoffs in the final regular season game. Newman beat Edgar last week, but then they could not beat them the second time in a row.
With almost identical scores. Wasn't it 55-49?
You're right.
This one's 49-56. It's tough, for Newman. I think in there, with Coach Clausius' first year and having to try to balance your team where, you don't have a JV program. You're trying to build numbers. You're trying to set the foundation. A lot of they did a lot of things well throughout the season. And I think it's tough the second time around when you see that second team and you got to go over in their gym. And it's a little different atmosphere. And Newman, having a lone senior, they're young, a young team too. So and they'll be young for the next couple of years yet. So just looking at what you're trying to build and establish, I thought it was a successful first year. Obviously a tough loss because any playoff wins is just like icing on top, and you just get to keep going. For Athens, going to Athens, I think they may be one of those teams that a little under. They were 16-9, which I think dropped their seed a little bit, but 13-3 overall. And I think if I remember correctly, they played well against Assumption.
1 point game.
Yeah. So I just think that they're going to hit their mark. They have a handful of they have some size and length on that team and some girls putting up some good points. So just kind of a team to keep an eye on in that Division 5 sectional.
And sectional 4 was where Assumption is. They're not in that part of the bracket this year. Assumption beat Port Edwards. At least Port didn't have a long way to go home after a 70-8 loss last night. Assumption will take on number 8 Fall River Friday night. Fall River beat Central Wisconsin Christian 58-50. The other part of the bracket, Wild Rose number 5, number 4 Randolph. So Assumption could face either one of those teams on Saturday, and then things will start to get, I think, a lot more difficult for them. And I know that they're a little banged up as well. So for Assumption, it's going to be interesting. They still have a lot of talent. They have a lot of winning pedigree, but when you're missing some important cogs, that makes it very tough.
Yeah, you gotta fill those voids. You gotta find ways around it. Put the girls in the best spots you can. I think right early on here they're going to handle some of those teams in the early round, but obviously going to get a little tougher as they go on. And you don't know. Are you going to get those pieces back that are injured? Are they out for the year? The coaches don't disclose a lot on that, which is more than fair. So just to see if they can continue their ways to getting back to state where they've played a lot of games down there lately.
Hockey. Time for our hockey.
I'm ready. Go for it.
Well, last night I was over at the Marathon Park Ice Arena and saw the Central Wisconsin Storm, and I think very, very impressive. Again, we talked about this previously. This bracket is incredibly difficult. It features 3 of the top 4 teams in the state, and last night the number 3 ranked team in the state, Central Wisconsin, took on the number 4 ranked Hayward Hurricanes, a rematch of a sectional semifinal from last year when Hayward came to town and eliminated the then defending state champion Central Wisconsin Storm. But last night the Storm did something they haven't done a lot of. They scored a lot of goals, and they defeated Hayward 7-3. Gabby Heiser had a hat trick for the Storm, and it sets up a massive sectional final coming up on Friday night. The number 1 ranked Superior Spartans will be played in Mosinee, so it's a long drive for Superior. I saw the matchup between these teams a couple of weeks ago up in Superior, 1-1 game, tie game after overtime, and again, it's going to be a fantastic matchup. That second game, because they played twice. Superior beat the Storm 3-2 Christmas week, and then 1-1 tie up north a couple of weeks ago. But it's a home ice game for the Storm because the host of the sectional final is Mosinee. Yep. I mean, I know Superior's probably not going to be thrilled about it.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Long trip and then to play on the home ice, but that's the way it is because, as you well know, these schools volunteer. Right. I mean,
Superior volunteer early on.
Right. I mean, they could have volunteered to host the sectional final, but no, they did not. So, if you volunteer to do it, you get that advantage if your team gets that far. But I just think it's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. We'll have the game live here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, coming up on Friday night, 7 o'clock face-off. But, boy, again, both these teams, state championship potential, but only one will be playing down in Madison next week.
And what do you think now that you've seen that you've done numerous Storm broadcasts, seen them play plenty, seen the 2 against Superior? What are they going to have to do this third time to come out with the outright win?
Find the back of the net like they did last night. And I mean, it sounds simple,
right?
But there are nights they shoot it 35, 40 times and get 1 goal. They finished exceptionally well last night. Exceptionally well. That's vital. They have to, I think, again, take care of the top line of Superior. They got 2 of the top players in the state of Wisconsin who are incredibly talented and put up huge numbers, and have to make sure that they're tight in that respect. Make it difficult. And just basically play a clean game. I mean, don't make mental mistakes. There was one mistake that that cost them a power play goal last night. Can't let that happen. I mean, we get to this level, boy, every mistake that leads to a goal could be the difference. So, again, I think the Storm will have the better goaltending, and I think that's going to be a major factor as well.
And do you know how Superior did in the previous game?
They won 10-2 last night.
Okay,
it was much. I mean, the key for this bracket where you had the 3 top teams, and then there was a big gap.
Yep.
And they had the easier go of it. So
Storm is in a better place because they've been a little more challenged in the schedule.
I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe it's one of those cases where you don't want to have that kind of game last night where you play a great game against a great opponent, because sometimes I've seen it where they played wonderfully, and then the next game they don't look like the same. I mean, so I don't think that really has much of a factor. I think that's going to be the case. But again, Friday night, hope you can join me at 6:50 for the pregame as the Central Wisconsin Storm looks to punch a ticket to state against Superior. 1 versus 3 should be a fantastic game. If you're not heading to Mosinee, tune in right here on WXCO. On the boys' side, last Thursday, the Wausau West hockey team saw their season end against Hudson 4-1, but the Warriors took the lead late in the second period, 1-0, and then a 5-minute major penalty allowed Hudson to get the equalizer. They would stay 1-1 until past the midway point of the third when Hudson took the lead. They would add a power play goal and an empty netter to finish it off. It was a really good game. Julian Scalcucci, the Warrior goaltender, was stellar. The freshman really did. He stood on his head early. He was 11-0 in shots early, and he made some big saves to keep West in it. But Warriors finish up their campaign with a 500 record. Stevens Point eliminated Hudson then last night. Spash beat Hudson 5-3. Spash is looking for their first trip to state in 15 years, which is hard to believe with the hockey tradition they've had. They will take on Chippewa Falls in Hudson on Saturday. And the Mosinee hockey team earned a big win last night on the road at Lakeland, 2-1. So Mosinee, a bit of an upset, winning at Lakeland. And they will look to make it back-to-back trips to state Saturday. They get, again, a home game, even though they're the lower seed, because they volunteered to host. And they will take on Tomahawk. And Tomahawk's had a great year. Tomahawk and Mosinee. Tomahawk put up an 8 spot, if I'm not mistaken, against Mosinee at one point this season. So that should be a good one on Saturday as well. So sectional finals coming up. And then, of course, next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the state tournament down in Madison. We're going to come back and talk about the brackets on the boys' side. Yep, the brackets came out this past weekend. Get some thoughts on where our area teams landed as the playoffs get underway starting next Tuesday. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. And Sunday, the brackets were released for the upcoming boys basketball tournament. And the Wisconsin Valley Conference, 2 number 1 seats in D1, a number 1 and a number 2. We've been talking about it, and we heard from Coach Chris Fisher of Marshfield last week. This is a much improved conference, and I think the computers showed it.
I agree. I mean, we've had, just correct me, hopefully I'm not missing anything. We've had Coach Fisher on, Coach Garrett on, Coach Lemons, Coach Drake, and so I think we've cut. And everyone when we've talked about it, have just talked that the Valley they're having a good year and it's stronger. And I think that reflected in the seeds they got. And I think that's a big deal because over the years, the Valley hasn't gotten that knock or that notch in the seeding. They've been lower ones. And so I think that's a testament to that conference strengthening, the wins that these teams were able to put up, some of the non-conference wins they got. I think it shows. And then obviously the next step is always backing that. You got to back that in your playoff
and
wins.
It's going to be hard because this bracket is sectional 1 and D1 is just so good. And the reason I say it's really good, you look at the play-in game between Chippewa Falls and Wisconsin Rapids. Rapids is 16th seeded. Chippewa Falls is number 17. The winner will play Marshfield, the number 1 seed. Wisconsin Rapids is shown to be a team that can play. They really have. They're, I think, a much improved team this year. And then Chippewa Falls, we mentioned earlier, they won by 38 points against the Valley team in the past week. I mean, and I saw Chi High take Wausau West to overtime earlier this year. And they nearly beat Everest earlier this year. I mean, there are no patsies from top to bottom. And I mean, Chippewa Falls was hitting 3-pointers in that game against West early. they could be a 17 versus, and we last year, remember? They had a 16-1.
Brought it up.
Yeah. I mean, it would not shock me again to see competitive games between very high seeds. But I'm going to kind of go down it here.
Go ahead.
You got Marshfield, the number 1 seed, will play either Wisconsin Rapids or Chippewa Falls. The 9-8 team game, Kimberly, number 9, Appleton North, number 8. Appleton North beat West by 30-plus points on West home court earlier this year. So, again, that 8 seed or 9, Kimberly's been a great program.
Yep.
They're one of those teams, if Marshfield wins, will host, again, that's a hard 1 versus 8 or 1 versus 9 game. You got Kaukauna, number 5, hosting number 12, Wausau West. And don't call me a homer here, but I have had trips with the Warrior boys to the eastern part of the state in the playoffs over the years. And I've gone into those games not being very optimistic. I think Wausau West could go over there and give Kaukauna a really good game and even win that game. I do think if they're shooting well, and that's the key, if they're shooting well, they got a really good shot because they're going to play defense. They're going to make it tough. So I think this West team has had a really good year. And they would be and I was saying this to somebody else, they lost 2 overtime games in the last couple of weeks. One to DC Everest and one to Marshfield, both on the road. They would be I think maybe 3 seeds higher if they win those 2 games. I mean, beating Marshfield last Friday, I think, would have definitely been a big factor in the computer, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, it would have added to.
I mean,
it should add you a seed or 2.
At least.
Because
I mean, Everest.
Especially if they're number 1.
Right. Everest is a number 10 seed. I mean, I was slightly surprised, I would say. I know they played really well coming down the stretch, but they're 2 ahead of West, and I thought West really handled them the first time and then an overtime game the second time. But Everest, the number 10 seed, at number 7, Hudson. And then you got Stevens Point, the number 2 seed. They'll play either number 18, Appleton West, or number 15, Holman. So you got the 1, the 2, then you got the 10 and the 12 and the 16, the Valley teams in that bracket.
Yeah, I think it's a tough call because, like you said, this is always one of our ploys based on the region surrounding a lot of these teams that they cover to knock them into to make that cause why you should have 6 teams going down to state. There's just, look how this is kind of packed.
And that's only one bracket. Who knows what the others look like?
But that's what I'm saying.
I know. I mean, it's like this is just, just loaded.
I guess at the end of the day, the Valley and the computer system kicked it out where they've earned some of those higher seeds. And then you got a couple that could have been a couple seeds higher with a win here and there some other way. So I'll be interested to see where this plays out, and can the Valley hold the credibility of what they want to earn to show these other teams that they're formidable foes.
Another number 1 Valley team, seeded number 1 in D2, is Wausau East. Lumberjacks will face either number 9 Ashland or number 8 Merrill. See if one of the Blue Jay boys gets 53 against Ashland in their first playoff game.
Yeah.
But Merrill hosting Ashland 8 versus 9 next Tuesday. Winner plays the following Friday against East at East. Rhinelander, number 5. Boy, I mean, talk about a tested team. They're tested, and they're a 5 seed. They'll host Hayward. If they win, they go to number 4 Rice Lake as part of the top half of the bracket. Then you got number 11 Antigo at number 6 Medford next Tuesday. The winner at number 3 New Richmond. Number 7 Lakeland hosting number 10 Menominee. Next Tuesday, the winner goes to number 2 River Falls. And then the bottom of the bracket, Mosiney's been moved out. It used to be all part of that.
Right.
Mosiney's down at the bottom. In another regional, they're a number 3 seed. And I mean, that shows I got a feeling that's a pretty tough bracket if Mosiney's a number 3. They'll face either number 11 Toma or number 6 Seymour on Friday the 1st. West Salem is the number 1 seed in the bracket. Fox Valley Lutheran the number 2, Mosinee number 3, and Onalaska number 4. So D2 generally going to
just East had an outstanding season, 17-6 right now, 8-3, getting to play for second place in the conference on Thursday versus Spash, who they've already beat. I think their credit to the group of seniors and the juniors and how that team is mixed together to go out and get that number 1 seed. And here again, when you try to get away from conference opponents, they could see Merrill right away again. For Merrill, I think it's a big deal to go out and knock off Ashland. You're playing in front of your home crowd, go get that first game, and then they would play East, who's already beaten them twice, and get to roll the dice on that one. For Mosinee, they've had an outstanding season also at a 19-4 mark, top of that, or will at least minimally share a top of the conference there for the Great Northern. I would think maybe they'd like to be seated a little higher, just knowing the players and coaches and how they think, and so maybe playing with a little chip on their shoulder with that. For Medford, they'll see a formidable foe in Antigo right away at 6-11, and for Rhinelander, the 5 seed going against Hayward, the 12. I think they'll own that. I'm curious to see how Lakeland pops out of that a little bit against Menominee at number 10 also.
D3, Wittenberg-Burnham was the number 5 seed. They will next Tuesday host number 12 Tomahawk. They would go to Wapaka on Friday with a win. Freedom is the number 1 seed in that bracket. Witt-Birn, they've challenged themselves recently. They played Wausau West this past Monday. They played Marathon the previous Monday. They had a conference win late last week. They're always tough. But I don't know if they got enough beyond Jet Rogowski, a very quick guard, but he's going to need some help in order to get any kind of deep run to get past Wapaka, at least in the early rounds.
Yeah, I think they're in a challenging bracket. I mean, they go to that eastern part of the state. It's
always tough.
With Freedom and
Freedom,
and there's a couple other teams in there that slip my mind right now. But they're tough. They'll beat Tomahawk in the first round, and then you'll see what you're rolling after that point.
Division 4, the Merritt Conference South Division bracket. In Sectional 2, the top half of the bracket, the regional, has Marathon, the 1 seed, Auburndale, the 2 seed, Edgar, the 3 seed, and Stratford, the 4 seed. As I mentioned earlier, Stratford probably be the 3 seed if the brackets had come out after their win against Auburndale. But Marathon will take on either Crandon or Colby in the first round a week from Friday. Stratford will take on either Abbotsford or Washburn. Edgar will take on either Shawamigan or Iola Scandinavia. And Auburndale will meet either Phillips or Spencer. I would be surprised if we don't see the 4 Merritt South teams getting together in regional finals a week from Saturday.
Well, they've earned the bye. They've wailed on each other. They're going to do it again, I think, to get through. And I wouldn't be so surprised that just judging what's happened over the course of the last couple seasons, what we saw with the Stratford beating Auburndale when you didn't think that, you thought Auburndale, it'd be a good competitive game, but thought Auburndale would be on top of that, setting for that conference showdown with Marathon on Thursday. I think you're right. I think you're going to see those 4 teams advancing these other teams, and just then we'll see who pulls out of that.
And I do like the way Marathon's playing. I mean, beyond everything else, they are just really playing well right now, and they're going into the playoffs, I think, in a good spot.
Yeah, and they're balanced. You've got a lot of different parts moving on that team. Besides the discipline they have and the winning tradition that they have, you got a pretty balanced lineup there with what Coach Jacobson has on the floor.
And Division 5, you got sectional number 2. Alman Bancroft is the number 1 seed. They will wait for the winner of next Tuesday's game between number 9 Northern Lutheran and number 8 Wild Rose. You got Wabena Leona, number 5, against number 12 Rosholt next Tuesday. Also next Tuesday, Tri-County, number 13, against number 4 Tigerton. And then the bottom half has Pacelli, the number 3 seed, against number 14 Gresham. The winner of that game would move on to face either number 11 Newman or number 6 White Lake. Number 7 Marion, number 10 Elko, number 15 Boulder, number 2 Three Lakes. Thoughts?
I guess I'd start with Newman. I think playing at a lower division in the Merriwood Conference really can make your playoff run go well, because you're tested and you're ready to go, and it's not maybe all the type of same conference and non-conference schedule that these other teams have seen in Division 5. I think, for Newman, they're playing better basketball. Those sophomores are showing up in a different way, as well as the other key cogs on that team. They had a chance to take Assumption. It didn't work out that way, but they did some things better. The last time they played Pacelli, they played them better. And if they can go win in White Lake, which is the last time I was up there, very different gym. It's real tight.
I'm going up there.
Okay.
There's a room for me?
Well, yeah, it looks like a converted church, real high ceiling in the middle. I mean, the last time I was up there, 2 things happened to me. I was asked when we were videotaping the game and scouting White Lake, we played, and we were asked if we were from ESPN, and we were told how much harder it was to watch the games when they moved the old bleachers, which had 2 seats, to the new bleachers, which had 3 seats.
Oh, geez.
And so interesting environment. So Newman goes up there, gets the W. They set down another matchup where they've already shown they can have the lead and played well against Pacelli the first time.
That's it. That would be a very interesting game a week from Friday as well. And also Athens, a number 10 seed. You mentioned it earlier. They taking on number 7 Prentice. Number 1 seed in the bracket is Rib Lake. They'll take on number 16 Butternut. We're down to our final moments. Any thoughts on that, or any general thoughts here in the last minute or so?
I guess it's just fun to get out and see what the playoffs had to offer. It's such an exciting yet sad time. It's sad when I'm writing some of my notes and some of the teams are done, and that's the last note you're going to write on that team for the year.
That's right.
Versus some of these cool matchups in the playoffs. Like, there's so many different things that can go on. If your team can play really well all year long and have one off shooting night, and the other team shows up in a different way, and it's done. And I think that's the big thing in this. Why the players just gotta not take anything for granted, make that last moment happen, fight through the mistakes that happen. And I just think there's so many interesting developments that we're going to see across these divisions, from the big bulk of the Division I bracket in our area to some of those Division II teams from the Great Northern and the Valley going against each other possibly again, and jumping into the Merriwood Clash that's going to happen at D4.
Plenty to talk about again next Wednesday. We'll be back from 6 till 8 next Wednesday night. For Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks again for joining us for the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.